Wow. I just wish this looked like shit. I don't care about the graphics is a statement I've heard a lot. And while I think it's generally said in good faith, let me explain why I think it's objectively wrong and why I'm personally so invested in this subject. But it's important to define what we're actually talking about here. I want to emphasize right away that good graphics does not mean modern, it does not mean high fidelity, and it does not, for the love of God, mean realism. Every time someone says Pokemon has never had good graphics, a Pikachu jumps off a cliff because it can't stand to hear such a dumb statement. The word graphic can mean a few things, like the violence in that scene was really graphic, but in this context, it's essentially defined as images on a digital screen. So with that said, simple games can have good or even great graphics. And by the way, channel members get early access to these videos. The Game Boy version of Tetris is about as simple as it gets, on a system with a 160 by 144 pixel screen that can only display 4 shades, no color, unless you count everything being green as a color, I guess. But look at how purposefully they've set up this image. The gameplay area is clearly separated from the information on the right with the highest contrast they could manage. The scores display differently from the level and lines, which helps to break up the monotony of these 3 sections. These 2 are more relevant for gameplay, and this one not so much. And every Tetromino has a clear silhouette and a unique pattern to help differentiate them as much as possible. Tetris has good graphics, because it purposefully and efficiently makes it as easy as possible for the user to engage with its gameplay. So does that mean the best graphics are always the most simple and readable? Well, no, because it depends on the intention. If something happens that makes the game harder to see because the intention is that mechanic will make the game more fun, those are good graphics too. It's in our instincts to feel extra stressed if we can't properly assess our surroundings, or if we're overstimulated by flickering warning lights, and there's nothing wrong with an artist taking advantage of that for a specific purpose. But of course, whether you like those mechanics or if you'd prefer something more simple and straightforward is your personal preference, and that's okay. Based on this, I define good graphics in a video game as successfully, visually communicating the desired intention to the user, and your intention with the game can be as simple and readable or confusing and jarring as you'd like. Don't get me wrong though, there is some objectively terrible garbage out there as well. Pokemon, specifically these ones, have bad graphics because the intention doesn't align with the images they're providing. You tell me we're in the thriving metropolis of Lumio City, yet what I'm seeing is closer to cardboard cutouts. Everything is flat, repetitive, and stale with barely anything moving, basically the exact opposite of what a thriving metropolis would be. You set up the game as if these characters are important, but don't have them move in a way that makes me believe they have any thoughts or feelings. And it's not an issue of hardware. Games have adapted their visuals to their limitations since the beginning. When a simple, unmoving sprite is paired with a text box, the intention comes through just fine. But when a detailed 3D anime character is miming on screen with no sound coming out of their flapping mouth, you've now created something uncanny, losing the disconnect that allowed those less detailed graphics to work. When there's no consistency, the intention is completely lost. Mario Kart and Call of Duty both have good graphics, but if you make a light-hearted kart racer with magical items and cartoon physics where no one really gets hurt, and gave it the design of a realistic military shooter where every bullet could mean life or death, the visual disconnect isn't going to work, unless you are being intentionally inconsistent. A simple visual language can get away with leaving more to the imagination because it's at least consistent. Does this look like a real landscape? Well, no. But everything, Mario included, is consistent enough I can believe it's a cohesive world. My character looks like this, so a building looks like that. Yeah, makes sense, right? These characters have rendered eyelashes, but this building with 50 windows and balconies is a flat texture. Well, if your intention is to give the player the feeling they're on an abandoned film set, sure. But if you're trying to sell the illusion of an immersive, bustling city, then no. And if these things just don't matter, then why are they here in the first place? You guys are paying rapidly increasing prices for games full of things that you think don't matter?
You can stare at a brick and complain that it doesn't look good enough, or you can just play the game and experience it.
Experience it? How? Are you smelling the game? Are you tasting it? Or are you looking at it? for hours and hours on end. If graphics weren't important in Smash Bros, you'd never be able to read what your opponent is doing, making the dynamic back and forth impossible. If graphics weren't important in Pikmin, you'd have a hard time knowing what Pikmin are at your disposal, what their abilities are, and which are currently equipped, I guess is the right word. And yes, this absolutely applies to environments too. Gravity Rush has such an amazing feeling of verticality because of its beautiful visuals. Minecraft has such a large contrast between a peaceful meadow in the daytime and the intensity of exploring a dangerous underground area. This is all because of visuals. Oh, you don't play The Simpsons Hit and Run for the graphics? Well, yeah, you kinda do. The whole point of the game is that it looks like The Simpsons. The only people I want to hear say they don't care about graphics are people who literally can't see. And you'll notice when someone plays a game without graphics, the actual gameplay experience is something completely different.
89.7x.
89.7?
Grass block.
Video games are gameplay, story, and tone communicated mostly through visuals and sound. And conveniently, when the conversation is about sound,
Oh my, the music is top tier.
suddenly things that aren't gameplay do matter because they're good. Can you imagine if Legends Z-A soundtrack was on par with its graphics, and people were like, you could hyper-focus on the sound design, or you could just play the game and experience it like I do? In 2017, Nintendo were brave enough to launch their new console with the first non-video video game, but even that had a lot of effort put into communicating information and intention to the player purely through visuals. 1-2-Switch goes out of its way to set a specific tone, using live-action footage rather than the usual cartoony characters, and minimalist designs during gameplay to emphasize how it's supposed to be played. While a less thoughtful designer might have used more flashy, distracting visuals that, in this case, would have made the intention less clear. These companies don't hire all of these skilled artists for no reason. There's just no other experience like losing yourself in an incredible, fully realized world, or the feeling of adrenaline from some fast-paced action, or the calm of a peaceful island, or investing in well-designed characters, or enjoying a simple yet addictive puzzle game with a great layout. Immersion is extremely important for video games, and the intention of the visuals successfully communicating something that matches the intention of the story and gameplay is vital for that to work. Without the goal of immersion, you could just give every game in existence identical stock menus. Graphics don't matter when I'm just trying to use a menu, right? But if they did this, it would completely take you out of the experience every time. If a game can tell you everything you need to know about its attitude and style in a single frame, including its menus, that's an incredible feat of artistic vision, and the best part is there's always room to improve and experiment. Whether you want to create something modernized yet faithful or move in a completely new direction, that's what makes all of this so fun and worth discussing. So you want to make games look like photoreal? How much better can a cartoon look? I don't know, like, a lot? By improving elements such as color palettes, character design, and animation, just to name a few. With pure realism, there's a very specific limit visuals can achieve, but as soon as you apply stylization, you can make adjustments and improvements basically forever, depending on intention. You can harness different styles and tweak things to make the game more readable, and oftentimes these are the visuals that hold up the most. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with liking realistic graphics, but if you're the kind of person who thinks Deltarune isn't beautiful because it's simple, I'm sorry, but there's just no helping you. Sure, the corporate world is far from an artist's playground, and often a lack of experience, budget, or time will prevent a game's visuals from living up to their absolute maximum potential. But that doesn't mean the discussion around graphics should be shut down as not important, especially when we know a company should, by all reasonable measures, have the resources to put out a game with appealing visuals that match its intention. But you know, I guess no matter how passionate I am about this, I have to accept that ultimately some people just aren't. Immersive worlds, thoughtful UI, and well-designed characters are irrelevant to them, and I can't change that. So I'm sorry to all the artists at Game Freak. I know you guys put a lot of effort into your designs, but in order to raise their profit margins even higher, Game Freak should probably just fire you guys and replace every character with an indistinct blob moving forwards. Only gameplay matters after all, as the fans keep reiterating, No one cares about the graphics.
I do like his design though, and her design is so cute, and her character design is cute. The UI is very clean and seamless, and his jacket is very cool. A building being flat or not won't make the game any better or worse. You can even dye the tips of your hair different colors.
Except when graphics do matter because they're good.